We're in rainy Arizona in the all-new 2023 Hyundai Ioniq6, the streamliner EV sedan. I got a special guest, Matt Moran from Matt Moran Motoring. Once again, Matt, we teamed up for the Prius drive, and here we are again teaming up for another electrified vehicle. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No, yeah, no worries. It's an absolute treat. Even though the roads aren't perfect and ideal, it's probably good because this is like a national park, and if I were to get pulled over, I was saying earlier, probably wouldn't be good on my, record.
Right.
So, we're in the limited top grade model of the Ioniq6. This is the dual motor. It has over 300 horsepower. It should be just as quick as the Ioniq 5 to about 60 miles an hour. We won't be doing any of that, at least anytime soon with the rain. But just with any electric vehicle, just a slight press of the pedal, you have the instant power, the instant torque. It's very satisfactory. Now there's a rear wheel drive model as well with 225 horsepower. Will give you the most range. I think, Matt, what did you say the range was?
361 is the top range.
Right. It might be the most efficient vehicle on the market when it's out. I know that the Teslas are efficient as well, but 361 miles of range. I mean, it's not like it has tiny wheels. It still has 18-inch wheels, and they look decent. I saw them earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would that be a way you would go, or would you want to have these really beautiful 20-inch wheels?
I mean, I think in the case of this vehicle, the wheels on the 18s aren't really much of a downgrade. So
I agree.
It really comes down to, I guess, if you want the extra range, but also the extra features, because you can't. I believe the limiteds, you can't get the 18s, right?
Correct. It's
so
only 20s.
You have to be okay with a simpler interior, less features.
Yeah.
For the trade-off of having the higher range, which I was incorrect. So it's the SE, not the base SE, but it's the SE
Long
with the
range.
Big battery. Yes, that does the 361. So
right.
I was mistaken.
Great point. And that opens up another discussion altogether with the smaller, was it 53 kilowatt battery?
Right.
And around 240 miles of range, if I remember correctly. Less than 200 horsepower, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I wish the base one would have had the same 225.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
You still get the same torque at least. It's like 258 pound-feet, I think.
And that's the most important thing.
Right.
If any diesel lovers out there know, torque is very important.
But yeah, I think they said 9 seconds for that base model, 0 to 60. So
9 seconds.
It's leisurely.
It's leisure. I mean, I tested a Kia Niro recently. That was a plug-in hybrid. It's quicker than that, but like the base Niro is around 9 seconds, and the Corolla normal and hybrid is around 9 seconds as well.
I guess
so
the average crossover kind of.
It's average. It's just like, well, it's over $40,000 though.
Yeah.
So, looking at the price to get the bigger battery and more power, it's only like $3,500 more, something like that. I'll put up the prices for you guys. So in my opinion, it's a no-brainer to go for the bigger battery over the base model. And the base model won't be available at launch. It'll be available later this summer with a smaller battery and less powerful motor. So this Limited is pretty loaded. Now, we don't have a head-up display. That's something I noticed. I think we had on the Ioniq 5, right?
I believe, you do get that in the Ioniq 5.
Yeah.
It's interesting it's not
kind of like the augmented reality is what they call it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's just dawned on me. But we do have the Bose sound system in here.
Yeah.
We have the most intense and crazy customization with the LED lights, which unfortunately, driving in the day, we won't get a lot of time to play with that. That would be more for like our at-home reviews that'll come later. But they've really tailored this vehicle for individuality, and like that's what the center console here is for. So if you're stopped and charging, you can use this as a table over something like the Ioniq 5. Yeah. I still personally prefer the Ioniq 5's openness and the slidey console. That thing's so cool. Epic. Epic. I really enjoy that coming from a minivan where I have a lot of open space and movability. So also something for me at 6'1", the seat's all the way down and my head's like I maybe have an inch of space. And this is equipped with the larger roof, which doesn't come with a pano roof like the Ioniq 5.
Sure.
Just that's something about the Ioniq 5 I love so much, that the clamshell opening of the shade, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, like not a lot of headroom in here, and so if you're taller than 6'1", you might actually need to get the models without the sunroof for a little bit more headroom. And my head was actually touching the roof in the back seat too. But the back seat, they have designed it to be very leisurely. And they're like, well, you can, contort your body and, lean from side to side. And when I did that and slump a little bit, your head doesn't come anywhere close. And you can slump like very nicely in there, like you would in a lazy boy, because there's so much legroom in that back seat.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And that's what Hyundai's really proud of with this vehicle, even though on the outside it actually doesn't look that big. It has a long wheelbase, and it is longer than, let's say, a Model 3 or even a Polestar 2.
Yeah.
But it has a lot more legroom back there.
Right. Yeah, I think it said 4 more inches over a Model 3. So it's in the back. So
Right.
And that had a really good back seat to start with. So I mean, that goes to show just how spacious it is back there.
And Matt, how tall are you?
5'9".
And what's the comfort like for you?
It's great for me. I mean, I fit totally fine even with the moonroof. Yeah, no space issues for me. But it's very rare that I encounter a vehicle that feels tight for me.
We can talk about specs and stuff. Like, that's already been out in the market. When it comes to first drives, it's important to talk about the things I'm feeling and experiencing in here. Windshield wipers work great today, so rest assured. We also, it's probably not fair to the Ioniq6, but you can only say things out of comparison, right? So I drove the Lexus RZ last week, which was very luxurious and very smooth and quiet. This doesn't feel, in terms of ride quality, it is a bit firm and bumpy, and that's why I'd love to try the smaller wheels. It might actually be a better ride, a softer ride, because it is very firm in here, and you do feel the road very well. And I feel a lot of vibration coming through the steering wheel as well, which isn't the most luxurious thing. But the seats are very comfortable, I'll give it that. And the materials, even though the materials are like hard touch on the doors, like there's a ton of recycled materials in here, but the design is so good with the striations on the doors and just the dimples in the door speakers and the moving of the switches, like even the fake fabric here that's made out of like a vinyl. Everything feels really high quality in here, even though it's not a soft experience per se. It's very upscale in terms of materials, it feels like in here. So that's I guess something that kind of carries over from the Ioniq 5. I felt like the Ioniq 5 was very much similar. This does have vehicle to load, and in the limited model you have it in the car, so you can actually plug in your laptop in the back seat and whatnot. And it charges really quick. You guys can look all that stuff up, but 10 to 80% in 18 minutes if you find an 800-volt charger, which is like, Hyundai and Kia and Genesis, the UTMB platform vehicles. It's crazy how good they are for electric vehicles for the first generation, essentially. First fully skateboard platform, dedicated, I guess you could say. Yeah. First dedicated EV platform. Like, they're already competing with Tesla and some of the best EVs out there with seemingly not a lot of experience, but Hyundai let us know today, it's like, hey, we've been working on EVs for about 20 years. I guess we can start driving this maybe a little bit hard. Not too hard because it's raining here and I don't want to put my life in danger or Matt or anyone else's. So it feels more confidence inspiring than the Ioniq 5. When I throw the Ioniq 5 in the turns, the center of gravity's noticeably higher. And I haven't been able to push it that hard with this vehicle, but I feel way more confident in this vehicle, even though it's raining out.
I just say that you have a shorter wheelbase than the Ioniq 5.
Oh yeah, for driving dynamics. Yeah,
that is one thing for dynamics. Yep. You have the shorter wheelbase. It's 2 inches shorter, so that's going to definitely give you a little bit of a different handling character than the 5. And aside from that, obviously the vehicle being lower than the Ioniq 5 is going to help you as well, in addition to suspension tuning and stuff like that.
Now the 18-inch wheels probably wouldn't feel as planted. Yeah. A little bit more give in the sidewall, but I would be happy to have pretty much the same acceleration and a lot more range with those 18s. I know we'll keep coming back to that, but that's the issue that we're getting into now with modern efficiency, whether it's on electric car or hybrids. Just like we were talking about the Prius earlier, it gets so much better fuel economy with the smaller wheels. So you pay more money, you get less range or less efficiency, and why can't we have our cake and eat it too, Yeah,
it's the price you pay for style, I guess.
For style, I guess, yeah. This does have the same regen braking system, as far as I'm aware, as the Ioniq 5. So we have 4 different levels of regen, and we also have one pedal driving, which I don't have on right now, but I drove all the way out here one pedal driving. I don't think I needed to use a brake pedal once. So it's extremely functional. It's going to be a small learning curve to people who haven't driven one pedal driving before, but it's very simple, it's very easy to use, and very predictable and smooth as well. So Hyundai's done a great job, and I know it'll continue to just get better and better. And they do have over-the-air updates. I think this is the first eGMP vehicle that they'll have systems over-the-air updates on.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it does.
Yeah, right. So, like, it hasn't taken them long. We said not only from an efficiency standpoint to catch up with Tesla, but even from a software standpoint and updatability, they're already getting close, which is pretty cool.
Except this doesn't have the ability to do farts.
No farts, no games either. You know, it's fine. You can, on Android Auto, they have games built in.
Yeah, that's true. There you go.
Yep. No farts, but a real man makes his own.
That's true.
So I don't need synthetic ones.
We have organic.
Organic.
In
That's the true sustainable fart.
There you go. We're not using electricity to generate fart sounds.
That's right. Now, one thing that Hyundai has done a little bit different here, we talked about having dual motor and 320 horsepower or so. They've prioritized rear-wheel drive, and that's something that I think most car enthusiasts can appreciate for sure. Even though it's great for sport, let's say you get rear-wheel drive only, it might not be as good for cold climates.
Definitely.
Compared to like a front-wheel drive only EV, for example.
Right.
Like, for example, the Nissan Ariya, which is probably more a competitor to the Ioniq 5.
But like Polestar 2's front-wheel drive, or I guess now it's switched
they
to rear-wheel
switched
drive.
it. Yeah,
but
yeah.
the pre-refreshed
That's true.
Polestar 2 front-wheel drive a little easier to live with, two-wheel drive in the snowy climates.
Right here. We have all the newest Hyundai safety features. I had lane keep on the whole way out. It's really good at just assisting you. Don't expect to drive the car for you, but it does help, center you in your lane and remind you when you're not in your lane. And we also have 360 camera in here, blind spot monitors. This has some new technology like lane turn assist or lane change assist, I think, which is a first for the Ioniq. So there's a lot of new stuff in here as well. So just don't think it's a reskinned Ioniq 5 that's been lowered. It does have some benefits to it as well. Leaving Tonto National Forest. A forest that doesn't really have trees, mainly like shrubs and cactus.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. All right, Matt, so I'm gonna ask you a question. If you have this versus what Hyundai compares against its closest rivals, the Tesla Model 3 and the Polestar 2, which would you be going with, or can you rank them? I know you haven't technically driven it, but in terms of being in this car and what you know about the cars, how would you rank them?
So I think for me, it comes down to how much the buyer values performance, because this vehicle is fully loaded, just over 57,000. You can get a Tesla Model 3 Performance that does a 3.1 second 0 to 60 for 54, 55 if you don't want autopilot.
And you might be able to get the EV tax credit too.
So that is the thing that's the most compelling about the Model 3. I think this definitely has the Polestar beat pretty handily, just because the Polestar doesn't have great tech. The interior feels a little more cramped in the Polestars.
The material, yeah, I agree. The materials are not very good on the Polestar. I like the interior on this car a lot more.
Yeah, but I mean, also, the Tesla, if you do want the extra assistance and stuff, that balloons the price really fast.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, of course, if you want full self-driving with big quotation marks, 15 grand for that. So, you can get them very, very expensive, but if you don't care about the driver assistance stuff, the Tesla still is really neck and neck with this pricing wise. And then again, we'll see how tax credits change and stuff. That seems to be a new story every week.
It is. Absolutely.
If Tesla continues to be eligible for that, and this isn't for the foreseeable future, I mean, it's just going to be tough to beat the Tesla still, just based on that pricing. But aside from that, I think that this has some stuff that the Tesla and the Polestar can't match. Like, you have cooled seats, which they refuse to offer in either of those vehicles still. And if you live in a place like Arizona, where typically it's super hot, the difference between this having cold seats, that might be worth the price premium over the Tesla or the Polestar. So there's some key things like that. Apple CarPlay, which I guess the Polestar has just now added, but the Tesla has no CarPlay, no Android Auto.
Right.
Smartphone integration's a really big thing for a lot of people. And so I know, for me personally, that's one of the reasons why we never considered a Tesla, is because you had no smartphone integration. So it comes down to, you know, individual preferences and what you need. But I would say that, you know, this and the Model 3 are neck and neck for the top EV sedan that's relatively affordable, I guess, you know, beyond the Taycans and stuff like that.
I think where this has a big advantage is in two areas, because they're all going to be quick, they're all going to be responsive. Powertrains, when it comes to EVs, like, it's no longer, that's kind of even the playing field, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Because they're all so good and smooth and responsive. But the two things that are good with this vehicle that I think buyers will choose this over, let's say, Model 3, because that's the best seller out there, is the design.
Yeah.
Every Model 3 out there, it's not that it's a bad looking car, it's just that it looks like every other car on the road, or every other vehicle on the, or EV on the road at this point. So if you want some individuality, not only exterior but on the interior, this car does it for you. Also, like, I feel like it's the range is just so good on it, especially in the rear wheel drive, that I think it has an edge on the Tesla. I think a Tesla where that could succeed, as we see a Model 3 right there, is they have the outstanding supercharger network, which is an ace up their sleeve, really.
But that's still diminishing every day too, with now them opening those up.
They're opening them up. They're opening them up,
and also the charging stations are getting a lot better for the other, you know, companies as well. So.
Yeah, that advantage for Tesla is diminishing week by week, and it's becoming less of an issue. I agree. I do wish we had the digital side mirrors here in America, but they're not legal. I feel like that's been going on for about 5 years now. They still haven't made it legal here. And would it be something I would be going for? I don't know, because I haven't driven it.
Yeah.
And it depends how expensive it is. But I mean, side mirrors work just fine for me.
Yeah.
How do you get to like the heated seats? Okay, so there's no button for it. You have to go through the menu.
Through the menu.
Okay, heated steering wheel, turn that on. Because the Ioniq 5 has dedicated buttons for that, I think, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Huh. But Hyundai has, there's articles, like Hyundai even said it in our press briefing today, but there's been articles online this week talking about how Hyundai's not giving up on buttons. And that just makes me so happy. It's almost like a car company saying, hey, we're not giving up on the gas engine for enthusiasts as well. Like, buttons to me, and like I had a tangent earlier with the volume knob off camera, like, I just love that we have a lot of the basic buttons in here to make my life easier. And Hyundai does it not only for that, but for safety issues as well. So Matt, what are your feelings for long live the buttons here?
Oh, I totally agree. I think that we're starting to see kind of peak screen in some ways, and I think companies are already going back and like, you know, Volkswagen had a bunch of backlash with the screens, and now like, okay, we're going to add more buttons into the next generation stuff. And I think it's just one of those things, people are trying to reinvent the wheel, and I think Tesla is partially to blame, because they were like, hey, let's just like do everything through the screen and two little scrollers on the steering wheel. And it's like, you know, everyone was like, oh, okay, well, that works for Tesla, so I guess that works for everyone. And it's like, no, like, it seems like, you know, that was something that Tesla did and Tesla buyers lived with, but everyone, for the most part, seems to want buttons.
And and it's not like, if Tesla buyers had a choice to have buttons or not, I wonder how many would actually still prefer to have buttons.
Yeah. That's a good question.
That's just a compromise they're willing to live with, essentially.
Right.
Oh, one other thing, we know we've talked about Android Auto a little bit. It would have been nice to have it wireless, I guess, so you're not always having to plug in your phone. For some reason, Hyundai Motor Group, they just haven't implemented, even on their Genesis models. So, yeah.
I think it's some tech with the big screens, because the small screens have wireless.
That's right,
on the
base models.
Stuff. So supposedly that is a newer hardware behind the scenes than this big screen is technically, and so supposedly the next generation may have, you know, the wireless thing, but that is one key thing. You know, again, it still is an advantage over Tesla, which doesn't have it at all. But when you look at, you know, all the other, you know, competitors out there, the GM EVs and all that, all have wireless CarPlay. You know,
I don't know anyone else who doesn't have it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. I think they're the only ones that don't have it.
They're holding out. At least, you know, here's the thing: it doesn't bother me that much, because I don't like wireless chargers. they heat up my phone, and sometimes they don't even work.
Right.
So here's another thing is that I love the what do you call, blind spot view monitor here on Hyundai and Kia and Genesis products. I just think it, like, you don't need that digital rear view mirror, or side mirror I should say. Like, it's built in, right? You don't even have to look to the side. It's already built into the center display here. Like, it's absolutely genius. I don't know why no one else has implemented it yet.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, we talk about they haven't implemented wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay for their expensive cars, but here they have like this amazing safety technology as well. Okay, the steering wheel is actually too hot.
Yeah,
and there's not levels. There's just one level. It's either like burn your fingers, which would be great in like freezing temperatures, but it's only 55 degrees. Oh, there's an Ioniq 5.
Yeah, that was a lower trim too.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, very hot heated. And a Copper Crest RX right there. We're seeing all sorts of cool stuff.
All kinds of new stuff.
Unfortunately, there's no button to get right back to Android Auto. So this is a personal preference here of me, or sorry, yeah, and that's touchscreens, right? You think you touch it and it swipes away.
Yeah.
I can't get to the menu, the Hyundai menu from here. I would have to press one of these buttons down here to, oh, and I just see it, I accidentally just pressed that button, which brought up another menu. So Hyundai knows the importance of buttons, but I still would probably prefer to have even more buttons for everyday functionality. All right, well, I think we've pretty much summarized everything we need to about the Ioniq6. There have been no surprises for me. And that's not a bad thing, because it's building off of what the Ioniq 5 has set the bar with just so well. And this has set the bar again when it comes to range and efficiency. Maybe not practicality, because the Ioniq 5 has more room and more cargo space. So after driving both, I might actually go for the Ioniq 5. But it's all personal preference, and if you need that extra range, or you like the unique looks and you want a sedan that handles a little bit better, this will be a good option for you as well. Matt, what are your last thoughts here on the Ioniq6 Streamliner?
I just think it's awesome that we're even offering a sedan, because this is a segment that isn't super popular anymore, and very few people are doing sedans, especially in the EV space. And so the fact this thing even exists, I think, is kind of a gift in a way. And I'm excited to test it out here. But so far, as the ride goes, it's just a really nice thing to roll around in.